Hello everyone, Jolene here from Bookworm Adventure Girl. Welcome back. I hope that you are all well. And if you are new, thanks for checking out my channel. Please hit subscribe and stick around. Today I am going to talk about the books that I have recently added to my TBR because of the BookTube community. I did 2 videos to celebrate my birthday. I listed 22 fiction and 22 non-fiction books that I gave 5 stars to, and then I asked for recommendations that you would add to the list. So some of these recommendations come from that. The others come from some videos, basically, that I've been watching over the last, I would say, few weeks, last 2-3 weeks, and it has caused my TBR to explode just a little bit. Once again, it's a great problem to have. And then I thought that I would share these 12 books with all of you. It also gives me a chance to shout out some great booktubers and their channels and videos, as well as some subscribers in the booktuber community. So I will leave links to all of the channels and videos below, as well as a list of the books that I will be mentioning. So first up is a book that Sears talked about in a reading vlog that she did. She talks about 2 books in the vlog, and one of them is Wahala by Nikki May, which I thought sounded good. Olly compares this book and the characters to Sex and the City, which I absolutely love. So I quickly put this on my TBR. It might be Sex and the City Nigerian style, so I'm up for that. Next up is a book that Leo Bancroft talked about in his Black History Month wrap-up video. There were actually a number of books on this book list that sounded really interesting and books that I would read, but the one that appeals to me the most is 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. Leo gave this 5 stars, and it's about 2 writers who get a second chance at romance. One author writes vampire erotica, and the other writes literary fiction. At that point in the video, I thought this might be a bit like Beach Read, which I did love, by Emily Henry. But the way Leo describes it, it might be a bit more complex. The book deals with trauma and has some, laugh out loud moments. So this is one that I do want to pick up. The next booktuber that made my TBR explode is Elisabeth from Bouquins and Books, because she talked about Murambi, the Book of Bones, and this is by Boubacar, Boris, Diop. I think I'm saying that correctly. She talked about this in her February wrap-up video. Many of you already know that I read books about Rwanda, especially during the 100 days of mourning and remembering. That takes place in April, May, and June. So I have added this book to read this year, and I visited Murambi when I was in Rwanda, so I have a pretty good idea of what this book is about, and I will share more about that experience when I do my Kwibuka reads, which will start in April. Next on the list is Olly from Criminolly. Olly did A.J. Dunn's Canterbury Tales tag and had a few books on that list that I thought sounded very interesting. 1 or 2 of them I even have on my shelf, but the one that I added to my TBR is Michael Rosen's Sad Book, which Olly chose for the prompt, a short book that made you a better person. And Michael Rosen is an English writer and poet for children. And this book unfortunately, was inspired by when Michael Rosen's 18-year-old son died. And Olly speaks very highly of this book, and I am always interested in how writers approach heavier topics for children. So thanks to Olly for putting this on my radar. So I mentioned AJ, so let's go with AJ's recommendation next. AJ's channel is AJ Dunn Reads and Writes. But the recommendation that I'm going to talk about, I actually got when they posted on my video of, I think it was the 22 5-star nonfiction books. AJ recommended When Rabbit Howls by Truddi Chase. And this does sound like something that I would pick up. This is the story about a woman, Truddi, who has over 90 personalities, most likely due to a very traumatic childhood. I remember seeing Truddi interviewed on the Oprah show a million years ago, and I've never read anything about multiple personality disorders, at least not that I can think of, so I hope to get my hands on this soon. So a few other people commented on this video as well. I mentioned The Stranger Beside Me by Ann Rule in that video, and Amanda T says Ann Rule is her favorite true crime writer. So when she recommended Lust Killer by Ann Rule, I figured I should probably check that out. It's been so long since I read something by her, and I really liked her writing and her approach to the Ted Bundy story. Lust Killer is about serial killer Jerry Brudos, who it seems lived a double life. A hard-working married man, but then the other side of Jerry would only really be known if you looked in his freezer. And then the twist is that his wife is accused as well. Dun, dun, dun. So when I pick this up, I will definitely be reading it with all of the lights on during the day. SarahAsYouWish is another subscriber who recommended The Sound of Gravel by Ruth Wariner, which it turned out was actually already on my wish list. So thanks to Sarah, this has made me remember this book again. This is the story of Ruth Wariner, who has 41 siblings. It's about her life and when she begins to question her family's beliefs and lifestyle choices, especially regarding polygamy and faith. Another booktuber that commented on this particular video was Jennifer from Poetry Crone. Jennifer recommended This House of Sky by Ivan Doig. And when I read a bit about this book, it does appeal to me. It is a coming-of-age story in Montana, and it sounds like it's about our connection to the land and to our relatives. I had never heard of this author before, and I haven't looked into this too much. But when I see Doig, I think of some of my chosen family who are from the Doig Reserve or reservation. So I am wondering if this is also an Indigenous story as well. Regardless, the story sounds good to me, and if it is an Indigenous story, then that is a bonus. Since I read a lot of Indigenous authors who live in Canada, but I don't really read a lot of Indigenous authors who live in the US, so that perspective would be good to read more of, I think. So from my 22 5-star fiction book video, I had 2 subscribers recommend books that I actually have on my shelf, and they have been on my shelf for a very long time. Wendy Catalano recommended The Gargoyle by Andrew Davidson, which actually should be behind me. I picked this up when it was first published in 2008. I attempted to get my book club to read it several times. It never worked out. And it slowly fell to the bottom of the TBR. So at this point, I no longer even really remember anything about that book. But I think that I will keep it that way so that when I do read it, I can just be totally bias-free and just enter the story, kind of ready for anything. It would be great to get to this book sometime this year. That's my plan. Similar story with this next book by Lisa G. recommended, which is Stones from the River by Ursula Hegi. I've read other books by this author, and I liked them, but I have heard really, really good things about Stones from the River. And this has been on my shelf since 1994. So it's been a while. It's another one that I remember wanting to read so bad when I got it, and then have since forgotten everything about it. So now that Lisa has brought it back to my attention, I hope to get to it again this year. The last 2 books I added to my TBR in the last 2 days. Yesterday I binged some of Robert's videos. Robert's channel is Barter Hordes, and some of you may already know Robert as the mastermind and organizer of the BookTube Prize. Right now, Robert is doing a series he calls Barter Hordes Cup, in which he is matching 2 books and eliminating one. He's just in the first round, and he is on, I think, match 6 at this point. But in his 3rd match, he talked about The Trees by Perceval Everett. And I had never heard of this book or this author, but when Robert talked about the dead body of a white man and the dead body of a black man found laying side by side, then another murder takes place, and the same dead black man is found laying next to them, and then the same thing happens a 3rd time. I was like, sign me up for that, Robert. I need to read this book. So yes, that's all it takes to convince me. And finally, the book that I added to my TBR today, this morning, was because of fellow Canadian booktuber Rick McDonnell. Rick talked about a poetry collection called Swollening, I guess, by Jason Purcell. Jason Purcell is a queer, non-binary Canadian writer and poet from here in Alberta, and a number of things grabbed my attention about this collection, beginning with the title. I like that mix of swollen or swallowing or swelling, and the themes in the book are heavy. A lot of the poems, I think it sounds like they deal with trauma. And Rick did a couple of readings from the poems, and I thought, that's a collection that I would like to check out. So these are the 12 books that I added to my TBR most recently. Again, I will leave links to all of the videos mentioned, as well as the people who recommended them. Thanks again to all of you for these great recommendations. I do hope to get to these this year. I always love hearing other people's thoughts on, what is a good book to pick up and read. So please let me know if you have read any of these, or if any of these are on your radar, or let me know if there's a book that has been recommended to you recently that you're looking forward to reading soon. I'd love to hear about all of that, and I look forward to chatting with you in the comments. As always, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and don't forget to make every day an adventure.